But let's go straight to the political editor of the Australian newspaper, Dennis Shanahan, who has the latest Newspoll numbers, which will be in his paper tomorrow. Dennis Shanahan, the Australian had a Newspoll this morning. You've polled another 1,000 or so people since then. What's the latest?
Well, essentially, Lee, the two-party preferred is 50-50. To be precise, it's 50.2 to the Labor Party and 49.8 to the Coalition. But the real story, I think, in the numbers that Newspoll has are in the primary vote and are in the seats and states that are in New South Wales and Queensland.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the two-party preferred has been the bane of Julia Gillard's life during the election campaign. The headlines have been running 52, 48 and so forth, and she's been worried about a primary vote, which has been too low, and a protest vote. And that's certainly what seems to be coming through. The primary vote for the Labor Party is down to 36.2, and for the Coalition it is up to 43.4. Now, the golden rules are that the Coalition can't win government on 43 or less, and that the Labor Party can't win on a primary vote of less than 40. Now, they're both sitting on those golden numbers, and it would seem that a huge fall away in Queensland for the Labor Party has cost them overall support, which just has to be offset with gains in Victoria. New South Wales is also very bad for the Labor Party in primary vote and in two-party preferred. The Coalition's ahead in both Queensland and New South Wales, where all the seats are and where all the marginal seats are that they fear to be lost. On these numbers, the Labor Party could lose, at worst-case scenario, up to 25 seats.
Queensland, of course, has the Kevin Rudd factor because he is a Queenslander. Why are things so difficult for Labor in New South Wales?
Well, I think that the similar factor at work in New South Wales as there is in Queensland, and that is tainted Labor state governments. It is clear, and we saw this at the Penrith by-election, at the very beginning of the downfall of Kevin Rudd, that state and federal issues, or at least the brand of Labor, is melding together, and people have every right to take it out on the Labor Party they see, particularly in New South Wales, where Julia Gillard was assisted to the leadership by the very same people who had assisted various premiers in New South Wales out of their job and put Christina Keneally into the job. I think that there is a very large spread of the taint of New South Wales state Labor and state Queensland Labor onto federal Labor, and Julia Gillard is paying the cost.
What's your assessment of the campaign overall and the performances by each of the leaders?
Look, I think that personally the two leaders have done very well indeed. Certainly, Tony Abbott has performed beyond all expectations. He has got the Coalition into at least a striking distance of government when, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he couldn't get a seconder for the leadership. So that, for him, he has performed very well. He's been very disciplined. Labor expected him to make mistakes, and he hasn't. He didn't handle the national broadband well, and he hasn't handled the economic argument well. But overall, he has done very well. Likewise, Julia Gillard, in a terrible situation where there were the so-called leaks week, when a whole range of cabinet documents were leaked which damaged her standing, and Labor went into freefall in that week. She's recovered, but the question is now, has she recovered enough after that hit, and will the momentum that is clearly with the Liberal Party now continue through to polling day? It's very tight, but it comes down to that momentum.
Do you care, Dennis Shanahan, to make a brief prediction on which way you think it'll go?
Well, look, I think on these numbers, on the primary vote numbers, you would have to say the Coalition is more likely to win than Labor, and probably, or possibly the most likely result is a hung parliament. It seems that Labor will lose its 13 seats to lose power. The question is, will the coalition win enough to form government?
Dennis Shanahan, the political editor of the Australian newspaper, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee.